Hi, it's Heather, and I need to share with you something that's really critically important if you work with any young children or you have children of your own, or this might even just relate to you. So I have made it my passion in my last 22 plus years of teaching to learn as much as I can about the science of reading, brain research, and any learning hurdles that someone might experience. And one of the big ones that I went to a very long certification process for was the study of dyslexia. What it is, what it truly is, and how to help learners, whether it be toddlers, elementary, high school students, or even adults, be able to function really successfully with dyslexia. So I want to share with you right now what it really is and how we can help people who have dyslexia. So I hope you listen up. Here we go. So dyslexia is one of the major causes of reading struggles. And it shows up, as you can see here, as one of the many learning hurdles that someone can experience. There are things like vision issues or inadequate instruction or English as a second language, ADHD or other developmental or neurological issues. But dyslexia is a big one. So what is dyslexia? If I was in an elevator and I was like, here it is, I only had a couple moments to tell someone what it is, I would say dyslexia is the most common of the learning disabilities, and it is the leading cause of reading failure. Leading. And it is the underlying cause of school dropouts. And research has shown that approximately 70% of people in the juvenile detention facilities in our United States have dyslexia. Let that sink in. We have, as educators, failed those people. And I never want to see another person failed. I want to spread the word about what dyslexia really is and how we can help them, because early intervention and providing these strategies is the key to helping. So it is reading, writing, and spelling difficulties in spite of intelligence. People who have dyslexia are highly intelligent or just as intelligent as everybody else. It's not a lack of motivation or adequate instruction. It's a phonological processing disorder. It's language-based, not vision. It's not just writing letters and numbers backwards, B's and D's, P's and Q's, and then saw as was. That's not what it is at all. It is caused by a phonological processing disorder, and the learning takes a little bit longer route around the brain, and it's really critical to give strategies for that. It is genetic, it runs in families, and it's very common. 1 in 5. 20% of our population has dyslexia, and it can't be cured because think about it. It's a neurobiological processing disorder. It's a way the brain is wired. It's about manipulating language, not seeing it. It has nothing to do with seeing it. So one of the things is working memory. Working memory is that mental workspace that if someone gives you a mental math problem or a phone number or a set of couple directions, can you hold it? People with dyslexia oftentimes cannot. It is really hard for them to hold that information in their brain. And what we need to do is chunk information into smaller bits for these people. And that's why if you've watched any of my videos, is a very big proponent of syllable rules. And we're going to talk about interventions here at the end, but it's really going to be critical to help people who have dyslexia to chunk things into smaller parts so they can use their working memory better. Because a neurotypical brain might be able to hold 5 to 7 pieces of information for a quick recall, like a phone number, but someone who has dyslexia, where it takes a longer trip around their brain, might only be able to hold 2 to 3 pieces. So it's really critical to understand how their brain works. So I want to talk about really briefly how the brain processes information. So we get things brought into our brain by our 5 senses, right? We see, smell, hear, taste, touch things. And what it does is it goes into the active processing part of your brain where you're like, oh yeah, there's something coming in and I'm holding it and processing it. And then you come to the decision cog. Is this known information or unknown information? If it's known information, it'll just go on through to the learned information and knowledge bank. It's like, I already know this. That's the smell of bacon. I better go into the kitchen and get a piece. And they can do an output. They can get up and go walk to the kitchen. They know it's bacon. Okay. But if it's something they don't know, like how to spell bacon, so when they get to that decision cog, they're going to go, oh, this is new. I need to think about this. So now they have to go through logic, these higher processing thinking, long-term memory, visual and auditory processing to get it into that knowledge bank. And it might take a few repetitions for that. And once it's in the knowledge bank, then they can go through and do an output. Like they can spell it, they can write about it, they can draw a picture about it, they can use it in a story, they can do an output. So what I want to do next is just kind of give you a little simulation of what it is like to have dyslexia. Think about you are in a classroom and you're a student and you're trying to keep up with your grade level peers. What I want you to do is to read this bottom sentence here, and I want you to use the little cipher up on the top to be able to decode that sentence. So the I, for example, if you look up on top, would be an R. All right, do you have a piece of paper? Go ahead and pause it if you need to go grab one, but don't pause it to do the activity. All right, here we go. Decode the sentence. Good, you should be finished now. It says reading with dyslexia is exhausting. Wait, you didn't finish it? You weren't able to get that done? I gave you well over 10 seconds to finish that task. Now, that wasn't fair, I know. But think about this as a learner in your classroom, or if you have a child in your house and you are asking them to copy something or do any kind of task that requires this kind of mental load. It is impossible for them to be able to do it at the same rate as everybody else. So are you starting to see why it's really important to give lots of wait time and a lot of grace and really thinking about what kind of activities you want these kind of learners to be doing? Because if we are expecting them to take notes, for example, in high school science class, they're copying down things. Their brain is like, okay, that's the letter A. I need to actually get my messages down through my brain to my hand to form the letter A. How do you form the letter A? And they have written one word while everyone else has written the whole sentence, and you as a teacher or an adult in their life has moved on to the next thing. That would be frustrating. Might you give up? If you were that person trying to do this, you're trying your hardest to be successful with everyone else, yet everyone else is flying past you. That is one of those things that happen to our friends with dyslexia often. So what I want all of us to do is being very, very gentle. And if you are a teacher, being very careful about the things you're asking them to do. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is indicators of dyslexia. Now, I'm not going to read this whole list here. Remember, as educators, if you're a teacher or an educational professional, you cannot diagnose anything, especially dyslexia. It is something, though, we can screen for indicators of and do interventions for, but we can't diagnose as teachers. I'm a teacher. I could never do that in an IEP meeting or to a parent. That's a no-no. That's a huge legal can of worms we're not getting into as teachers, right? But you can look at all these indicators and say, this student is having a hard time with rapid naming and phonological awareness, which is oral language things like manipulating, rhyming, what's the beginning or ending sound, changing cat to hat to bat to sat to cap. Okay, changing those letters around, spelling, staying on task. Remember, these people are not lazy or dumb. I hate that word, stupid. Oh, that's horrible. They are exhausted, you guys. They are exhausted. They are trying so hard. And so they might have given up a little bit, but that doesn't mean they're lazy. Okay, that doesn't mean they're a problem. That means you, as their adult in their life, need to help them, intervene to give them some success. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, the letter and number reversals issue. So this is a myth. Me in the early 2000s was taught in my teacher preparation program that it was just reversing letters. We didn't really talk about it hardly at all. But in the last decade or decade and a half, we've really dove into what dyslexia is, and these things are myths. Letter reversals is a potential symptom of dyslexia. It doesn't even show up in every case. And it's actually developmentally appropriate and normal for kids under 7 or 8 to actually do letter reversals. It happens for everybody, or a lot of friends in early elementary. So if they're getting to be a little older, that's when we need to start thinking about interventions. Is that an indicator that they might have dyslexia? Remember, it's a potential symptom. It's not what dyslexia is. Dyslexia is extreme difficulty with reading, writing, and spelling tasks because the brain is wired in a different way. The information takes a longer trip around the brain and might get stuck in the frontal lobe. So it's harder, it takes longer, and we need to give them skills. Let's talk about the other elephant in the room, eye strain. Okay, eye strain. So I was taught in 2000 when I was going through teacher prep, don't do that math, that you could put a color transparency over a book page and it helps people with dyslexia. Another myth. What it's doing, because it does help, is it's only helping with eye strain. And as a teacher and someone who has a son with dyslexia, it is critical we're taking away any hurdles that could potentially make learning hard for these friends. It's just helping with eye strain. Don't put, if you have a smart board or if you're a virtual teacher, black writing on a white background. Having that white background is extremely contrasting for the eyes. So take away any hurdles that these friends might be experiencing. So eye strain is just a thing we could eliminate as an issue. And color transparencies or colored background on their books or things that they're doing is very, very helpful in a lot of cases. And a lot of programs have a toggle. I know Canvas has just come out with it. If your school uses Canvas and the students use it, where they can toggle for a dyslexic friendly font. A lot of programs are starting to do that now. And there's also a free font online called Open Dyslexic. And it just kind of weights the letters a little bit differently on the screen for them if they're doing some screen reading or typing. And it really can help. It's very beneficial for some people with dyslexia. It doesn't even help for all, because remember, we are just thinking about what kind of learning hurdles we can help them overcome. So the next thing we need to discuss is what we can do for these friends. So what I want you to think about is what kind of interventions can we use for our friends who have dyslexia, because we want to make sure that we are meeting them where they're at and we are not putting onto them things that are too difficult or are making it so they are not being able to learn with their grade level peers. And one of those things is, there's a lot of things on this list. I'm not going to read the whole list to you. In any grade, you can do things with rapid naming to help them with their working memory. Because remember, a lot of people who have dyslexia have issues with working memory, and they can only hold a few things in their mind. And if you do these little games, like, have you ever been to a party where they have a tray of a whole bunch of items covered up, and then you uncover them, and you're supposed to try to memorize as many things as you can in 10 or 15 seconds, and they cover back up, and you have to write it down what you remember, and you get a prize if you win, get the most. Well, those things you can do in class too. It's a fun game, but the kids think they're having fun in all grades. You can do it, just find things that they're interested in. But you know, as an educator or a parent, that I am helping you with your working memory. If every time we do this, you can remember even one more item, you are strengthening that part of your processing, a part of your brain, and it will help. So think about those kind of retrieval exercises or games or rhyming games. Even with older children, you can practice with rhymes and poems and repeating things back, those little chants, I say, you say, and they're having to hold it. Start with something that's 2 or 3 pieces of information, and then maybe add a 4th word. And then after they get good, a 5th word. So they're having to remember a longer series of things. So that's going to help with the working memory part. Then you can work with the phonological awareness part. People who are pre-K to 2nd grade, you're going to be wanting to use those phonological activities, those rhyming things, changing the beginning sounds. You are going to have them manipulating oral language, not writing it down, not seeing it, just remembering it and manipulating it. And then the other thing you can do for kids of all grades is give them graphic organizers. Give them other forms of mastery. If it's a writing task, maybe let them use some technology tools. Unless your learning target is having them copy something or spelling, let them use a word processor or spell checking things, or let them record. Maybe they can do, instead of an essay, because you're not an English teacher, you're a science teacher, but instead of having them write an essay on some topic, you are going to let them record a podcast, but they have to still talk about all the keywords, okay? Or make a cartoon of something. Let them find out what works for them, because in those kind of content classes that are not just English and comprehension for writing, you can have them show you they know it, because remember, they're just as smart as everybody else. And so let them show you what they know in another way, unless, of course, that's your learning target. So allow them the tools they need. And the big one I've got circled here is, please let them know the syllable rules. There are 8 syllable rules: open, close, magic E, vowel teams, diphthong, schwa, are controlled, consonant LE. Those are critical. And in my Teachers Pay Teacher store, I have free posters that explain, if you haven't done it in a while, explain what it is. Each syllable rule explains a hand gesture that goes with it, because if you can make it concrete, that helps your students or learners or children with dyslexia. So I have like open door, closed door, magic E, bossy R. So there are hand gestures that can help them, because if you can help them with that path around their brain by giving them something else to hold on to, like that's a magic E, that is going to help them write and spell and read so much better. So if you haven't looked at those syllables rules lately, I don't care what grade you teach, you need to go to my Teachers Pay Teacher store and just download them. They're free. You don't have to do anything else. Just download them for free. There's also sound cards in there for free. I do not want to gatekeep this information, so download it, use it, and it is going to help, especially, 3rd grade and above, with multisyllabic words, because as they get into those content classes in high school and middle school, they are going to be reading for knowledge, not learning to read. So having those skills is going to be critical. So above all, you guys, I really want you to think about teaching as, the cool part is, people who have dyslexia and people who don't need any different kind of teaching strategies that people with dyslexia absolutely need, like multisensory, using their body, using their senses, having concrete things and syllable rules and phonological awareness, and those kind of things are good for every learner. So if you are teaching towards someone who has dyslexia, you're helping everybody. You're helping the neurotypical learners. You're helping the neurodiverse learners, people with ADHD, autism, ADD, other learning hurdles, dyslexia. So think about the way you're teaching. Think about how you need to support the dyslexic learner, and you're going to help everybody. And above all, you guys, give these kids grace. If you are an adult with dyslexia, give yourself grace. There is nothing wrong with you. Your brain is just wired a little differently, which makes learning, reading, and spelling, and math for dyscalculia, which is a partner of dyslexia, makes it hard. So it's okay. Supports. There's a lot of people who have it. Remember the number? 20%. And as educators and parents and caregivers, we can support those friends. So if you have any questions, I am an open book. Please DM me or put it in comments. I want to help as many people as I can to support our friends with dyslexia. All right. Happy teaching and learning.